and welcome to CircleCI 101. Today, we will be talking about automating your deployment process quickly, safely, and at scale with CircleCI. My name is Henna Abbas, and I'm a support engineer here at CircleCI. Here's a little bit about me. You can see a little picture there in the corner. Like I mentioned, I'm a support engineer here at CircleCI. I educate about and help people make the most of CircleCI. So that means when you open up a support ticket, I'm the person on the other end that's helping you set up your project, run your build successfully, optimize your workflows, and debug issues. You might also see me on some of our community forums like discussed@circleci.com, along with other community events. I really enjoy helping people make the most out of CircleCI. CircleCI. Our mission at CircleCI is to make it as easy as possible to go from idea to delivery. We enable users to focus on writing code while we handle continuously integrating, testing, and delivering that code. A little bit about us. CircleCI was founded in 2011, making us 9 years old. Our team is over 350 employees strong, and we're spread across 5 different continents. We are currently the world's largest shared CI/CD platform, and we run over 1 million builds on our cloud platform daily. I'm sorry, I believe that we're missing a slide here for our agenda. That's okay, I will just quickly let you know the order of what we're going to be doing today. So I'm just going to go through some stuff about CircleCI, walk through the basics, and then walk you through a live demo. At the very end, we're going to save some time for QA. So if you have any questions, just pop them in the bottom. There's a little QA tab, and then we can get to those at the end. So yeah, I'm just going to carry on. So I just wanted to go on a little bit about where CircleCI sits in the toolchain. We're the orchestration layer that sits between your VCS and deployment to your production server. We build, test, and deliver your code for you. What does this mean? This means that you trigger a build from your GitHub or Bitbucket account. And CircleCI then builds that, tests it, and deploys this code to your production servers such as Heroku, Docker, AWS, GCP, and many more. Pretty simple. Here at CircleCI, we take security seriously. We partner with the top security organizations to ensure that your projects are built, deployed, and maintained securely. Sensitive data is always encrypted. All builds are run in isolated sandboxes and are destroyed after each use. Encryption is employed over the wire using SSH or HTTPS for both console output and artifacts. Both of these are only available to those with write access to your repository. Two-factor authentication. CircleCI inherits 2FA authentication, which is established in your third-party VCS provider, such as GitHub or Bitbucket. If you're interested in learning more about security at CircleCI, you can check out our security page, which is circleci.com/security. And then you can also check out more information on how CircleCI handles permissions at this link here. I'm going to do a quick product demo, which is essentially going to walk us through a green build through testing and deploying our code, and then using some of CircleCI's additional features. But before I do that, I wanted to get into some vocab about CircleCI. So our configuration hierarchy, to get you a little bit familiarized with how CircleCI works. So here is our CircleCI configuration hierarchy. So we have pipelines. Pipelines encompass the full set of workflows you can run when triggering your work on your projects in CircleCI. Workflows coordinate the jobs defined within your project's configuration, which is known as your config.yml file. A workflow is a set of rules defining a collection of jobs and their run order. Workflows support complex job orchestration using a single set of configuration keys to help you resolve failures sooner. Workflows help you increase the speed of your software development through the faster feedback, shorter reruns, and more effective use of resources. Jobs. Jobs are collections of steps. All of the steps in a job are executed in a single unit, either within a fresh container or virtual machine. And then steps are collections of executable commands which are run during a job. The checkout key is required to check out your code, and a run step enables addition of arbitrary multi-line shell commands. Scripting, which you might run something like npm install. That would be a step, or a command within a step. You can find the sample project that I'm using at this URL if you want to, clone it down locally, play around with it. It's right here for you to do that, so you can kind of see how CircleCI works for yourself. So to get started, the way CircleCI interacts with your code base is that there is a .circleci directory, and within that there is a config.yml file. That config.yml file essentially tells CircleCI what to do with your code, in what order, and that's kind of winds back to CircleCI's hierarchy, how jobs work, commands work, workflows work, and that's all in YAML. So let me just show you, rather than tell you, what a config.yml file looks like. All right. This is my config.yml file for my sample project. We are using just basic Python Django framework. You can find a number of examples or example projects on our website, and I'll link that later. But for right here, right now, this is my config.yml file. Our first step here you can see is our checkout step. The checkout step is a special reserved command in CircleCI. The checkup step is a built-in step that's available across all CircleCI projects. It conveniently checks out the source code for a job over SSH. After this, you can see the restore cache step. So caching is one of the most effective ways to make your jobs faster on CircleCI by reusing the data from expensive fetch operations from previous jobs. So for example, if you downloaded a number of dependencies, if you cache them, you don't have to continuously download all of your, or fetch all of your dependencies each and every run or each and every build. You can do that once and then use your cache in following builds. So you can also see the save cache step. You can use the save cache step to cache certain files or directories. So in this example, as you can see in the previous step, the virtual environment is installed and packages are cached. You can then use the restore cache in later builds to restore your cache. So that's why our restore cache is before a save cache. So in the next build, we will restore previous build's cache, install any updated dependencies, and then save that cache. There is also a special step for store test results. This is used to upload and store your test results for a build. Test results are visible in CircleCI's web UI under each build's test summary section, which I'll show you a little bit later as well. Storing test results is useful for timing analysis of your test suites, along with debugging purposes and audit logs, things like that. It's great to keep your test results. There's also a store artifacts. This allows you to store your artifacts such as build logs and binaries that are available for up to 30 days. So if you need them for longer, we recommend deploying the output to a dedicated output target, such as an S3 bucket or GitHub Pages or Netlify for static websites. And lastly, you'll see here is the Slack notify command, which we're going to go over a little bit later, since that's using an orb, which I haven't covered just as yet. Anyways, just to get started, let me walk you through our UI and getting your project set up on CircleCI's platform. So this project is already set up in GitHub, so we can just navigate to, give me a moment here. Okay, we just navigate to CircleCI. Let's just start at circleci.com. So here we are. We can go to our app. It's as easy as that. And then if we click the projects tab, we can see all of my GitHub repos. And we're just going to go ahead and click setup project. Over here, they do have a simple config.yml that can help you get started if you don't already have a config.yml file. Since I do, and we just had a look at that, let's just go ahead and use our existing config, and we're going to start building. And it's that simple. And as you can see here, our workflow is running. While we wait for that, I just wanted to let you guys see the UI. We do offer things like the pipeline, which is the name of your project, status of your build, the name of your workflow, branch, and the person who committed this branch. So if you hover over that, you can see the username, which is Henna Abbas, which is me. So if you have many people on your team, you want to know who committed that piece of code, you can see it in our UI, as well as build times and when they're triggered. You can also conveniently rerun workflows from within the UI or cancel them, which is great. So our build went ahead and ran. This is our workflows page. We only have one job, which is build. You can see that here. And you can see all of the steps listed out in the UI, which is very, very useful and when they ran. And in our test tab, none of our tests failed. So it just says, we just get a green build that says good job, good to go. So just for demonstration purposes, let's go ahead and write a failing test to see how that looks in CircleCI's UI. Here we are. All right, let's have a look at our test. Let's try test forms. Okay, yeah, I actually have something set up right there. Comment that out. So we know our date is not the word hello. We know that's going to fail. So should fail. Git push. And our commit should trigger a build on CircleCI's UI. So let's go ahead and navigate back there. Let's go back to our all pipelines page. And we can see our workflow, our build running there. We also do offer a feature called only build pull request, which will only build upon pull request. So you can, test out code that is triggered by someone that may not be on your team or before integrating it or merging it into your master branch. This also allows you to trigger a build upon a commit to one of your default branches. By default, your default branch is main or master, but you can add additional default branches by writing it to support. So let's go ahead and have a look at that. So this is super useful. You can see our entire stack trace right here. So it helps developers, engineers quickly debug what is going on. We can see that, you know, our issue is located at testform.py on line 37. I can quickly navigate to my code, see where that is within my code. So we're looking at line 37. So we know that this assertion failed. Quickly have a look. All right, let's just go ahead and fix that. So, all right. Yeah, this makes it super easy for developers to quickly debug issues. And we also have the artifacts tab, which allows you to save your build logs and artifacts. You can save anything you want as an artifact, any file, which is super useful for historical data purposes. Also, if for any reason your stack trace is not super useful, there is another feature that, you know, is life-changing in my opinion. So you can go ahead and if you navigate to, I'll just do it from here, but you can go ahead and rerun your job with SSH. This allows you to SSH into your VM or container and see what's going on there and quickly debug your issue. So you're not just dependent on your test suites, because sometimes you might have flaky tests. You might have connectivity issues. You might be pointing a domain to a different IP address. And it's not clear that that IP address has changed. So the new IP address is, you're not able to ping it from within your container. But that's not super clear in your test or your test results. You may have not written the correct test. A number of things that can go wrong. So SSHing into your build gives you an additional layer of visibility there. Okay, we are just going to, and that's just like a quick overview of how CircleCI works. So if you guys have any additional questions about the sample project or CircleCI, happy to answer those at the very end. I just wanted to give you a little bit of a taste of how CircleCI works. Right, that's a little bit strange. Let's try. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so now I'm just going to walk you through some features here at CircleCI that make you know, the basic version of CircleCI even more useful and give you a little bit more background there. Orbs. So what is an orb? An orb is a package of CircleCI YAML configuration that contains predefined commands, executors, and jobs. Orbs are shareable across users, teams, and organizations, making it easy to keep your CircleCI configuration up to date and in sync. CircleCI orbs are open sourced and used to reduce configuration complexity. They help you integrate with your software and service stack quickly and easily across many projects. You can explore available orbs in our developer hub, which is linked here. You can also learn more about creating and using orbs in our docs. Highly recommend that. Go ahead and check out our developer hub. If anything, that is the one place. As a developer, you can find lots of useful information. So over here, we can see an example orb.yml file. It's made up of parameterized commands, executors to define the runtime environment for executing jobs and regular jobs. Jobs and orbs are invoked similarly to local jobs in your config, and can include parameters just like regular jobs. Using an orb allows you to invoke commands, jobs, and executors as opposed to defining and then invoking them each and every time. This streamlines the entire process. This right here is a basic Hello World orb. So to give you an idea of how an orb might be used in a real life situation, I'm kind of just going to walk you through Slack's orb that you saw earlier in our demo. And so let's just quickly navigate there back to our. All right, here's our config.yml file. So CircleCI has a Slack orb that's already published on our orb registry. But all we need to do is use the orbs key and then pass in the name of our orb and the syntax or word that we want to use to call our orb later in our build. So we are using the word Slack to call the Slack orb within this build. So as you can see here, so Slack has a command called notify. We can add this to our job, which notifies our Slack channel on an event. We set that to always. You can also set your event to unfail, so that your team is only notified when your job fails. They're not notified when you're having green builds. That might get annoying. Alternatively, you might want to have a special channel for only when your jobs fail, so your team will be notified. They can jump online, quickly fix whatever bug is going on, or debug the issue and get everything back to normal. So all we do is call Slack, which is the name of the orb, along with notify, which is the name of the command, and that's how simple it is. And we're able to add a Slack notification to our config or our build. You'll notice here as well that we use context. Context is used to save environment variables, and the way context is different from regular environment variables that are project specific. If you use context, you can share your environment variables across different projects, and you can also set different security groups. Let me show you how that looks in our UI. Let's just navigate right there. All right, so if you go to your organization settings page, you will see all of my context here. So a context allows you to, so Slack secrets, this is where I would save my, my tokens, like access tokens, default channel. So it's saved as a secret, and my security group is all members. So all members of my organization on GitHub are able to use these environment variables when a build is triggered. If I only want admins or specific teams to have access to my context, I can go ahead and set that here. So this is super useful for security purposes and to save environment variables and restrict who might be able to use them. All right, let's just one of these days I'll get this right. Alrighty. Let's go ahead and move on here. So CircleCI's ecosystem integrations. We have partner orbs. So CircleCI partner orbs make it easy for your customers to integrate a partner's tool with CircleCI. The company works with CircleCI to build an orb that supports best practices, making it easy for customers to integrate tools such as CodeCup, Postman, Cypress, and many more. You know, a partner orb would, for example, would be the Slack orb that we just used. And then we also have CircleCI orbs. So CircleCI orbs are written internally by CircleCI, making it easy to do things like deploy to Heroku or AWS, or set up Slack notifications to notify your team upon completion or failure. And you can find all of the orbs that are available on CircleCI. So there's partner orbs, there's CircleCI orbs. The CircleCI orbs typically start with the syntax CircleCI before them, or at the start of them. Partner orbs start with the name of the partner. You can have more than one orb to, you know, Slack has a partner orb as well as CircleCI orb, and there's a number of different community orbs that are on the orb registry as well. And this is just how partner orbs differ from CircleCI orbs. So resource classes. This is a super handy feature CircleCI has. So this allows you to compute and optimize your pipelines. So the resource class feature makes it possible to configure CPU and RAM resources for each job. So this allows you to granularly leverage resources on a job based on level. So some workloads, such as a quick upload of test results like we just saw, require a few resources, while others, such as running large test suites or linting thousands of files, require more resources, more CPU power, more RAM, more memory. So you can use the resource class feature to set this in your config.yml file. So this allows strategic use of credits in a performance plan. Caching. So this makes your jobs faster by reusing data from expensive fetch operations from previous jobs. As you saw in our example, we use this for dependency caching, which is one of the most common use cases for caching. You can also cache your Git repository to save time in your checkout step, and then you can also use cache for then in your following builds, that cache will be used. So caches are typically best used to use data in following builds. Whereas if you're looking to persist data between jobs in the same workflow, workspaces can be a little bit more useful. So when a workspace is declared in a job, files and directories can be added to it. Each addition creates a new layer in a workspace file system. Downstream jobs can then use this workspace for their own needs, and are more layers on top. So every job downstream is able to access that data, as well as add additional data for further jobs downstream to use. So workspaces are not shared between pipelines. Like I was saying, caches can be shared between pipelines, workspaces are not. So the only time a workspace can be accessed after the pipeline is run is when a workflow is rerun. So rerunning your job with SSH, that would do that. Or just rerunning your job or workflow. This is only available for 15 days. So there's a 15-day limit on it. Beyond that, for security purposes, we do not keep this data. It is not accessible to the customer. It's not accessible to us. Parallelization. This is a great feature. So this feature is particularly useful if you have a large number of tests and want to speed up your build times. Waiting for each container to run one at a time can be very tiresome. So we introduce parallelization and test splitting. Test splitting allows you to split your tests across different containers. So the more tests your project typically has, the longer it's going to take for them to complete on a single machine. So to reduce this time, you can run tests in parallel by spreading them across multiple separate executors. So what you do in your config.yml file is specify parallelization level to define how many separate executors get spun up for the test job. Then you can use either CircleCI CLI to split test files or use environment variables to configure each parallel machine individually. So to kind of go back to CircleCI's CLI, it's CircleCI's local CLI. This is a very, very powerful tool. I would recommend that, if you have a minute right now to pause and just quickly download that. You can use it to validate your config locally along with a number of other things. Very useful. And to be totally honest with you, 90% of the time, that is my use case for CircleCI's CLI, is validating my config quickly, locally, so I don't have to just keep triggering builds and figuring out why my YAML is not, the syntax is off, it's not passing. Super useful tool. Parameterized config. So as you can see here, in this config, we can use the parameters key with a map of parameters key. Parameters key. Sorry, there we are. So your parameters, and then within your parameters, you have your parameters, which right here is subject. So in this example, we only have that one parameter, which is subject. So our subject will default, as you can see here, to the word world. So if a parameter is not provided, we will default to world. If a parameter is provided, it will pass in that value. So if a job is invoked with a parameter, without a parameter, it's going to default to hello world. Otherwise, if a subject is passed in, it will echo hello, and then whatever that subject is. And as you can see here, we have invoked our job 3 times. The first time above the box, it will print out hello world. The second time, if we invoke the job with the subject, we will echo hello everyone. And lastly, we will echo hello friends. This is a more realistic example of a situation in which you might use a parameterized job to invoke the same job with different versions of, say, node. So you only have to define your job once, and then you can call it with different parameters. So without parameters, you are defining your job over and over and over and over again. With parameterized jobs, you just have to simply pass in a different parameter, and this makes your config reusable. Less lines of code, less work for you. Very powerful tool. So parameterized configs are an extremely powerful feature when used with CircleCI's API to invoke pipelines, workflows, and jobs. You can see here, you can see an example of payload which will invoke a pipeline using CircleCI's V2 API. You can read more about this in our docs. So our parameter here is 12.16.0. CircleCI's API allows you pretty much the same functionality that you have in the UI. So it's super powerful. You can also use our API to trigger additional builds from within your build. So that's super powerful. Highly recommend testing it out. If you have questions, reach out to us. Happy to help you get set up. Matrix code. using matrix jobs is a good way to run a job multiple times with different arguments using parameters. Before matrix jobs, you'd have to invoke a parameterized job over and over with different parameters to do this. So if you know your parameters and you don't want to continuously parameterize your job or pass in different values, and those values aren't going to change, matrix jobs are a great tool as opposed to parameterized job. So you can declare and invoke the job once and pass in a list of parameters to do this. There's many use cases for this, including testing on multiple operating systems and against different language versions. So on the left, you can see an example of a parameterized job we'd have to invoke 12 different times with different parameters. And on the right, we can do this using a matrix job and significantly fewer lines of code. Isn't that crazy? Secret rotation and context. We went over context a little bit earlier, but to kind of dive in a little bit more here. So context can provide a mechanism of securing and sharing environment variables across many different projects. So for instance, in our example, we saved our Slack token in a context. We can then use that in different projects. So we're not limited to just that test project. I can set up notifications quickly using context, not having to add in additional environment variables for each and every project. So environment variables are defined as a name value pair, and they're injected at runtime. You can also restrict access based on your teams in your VCS, as I mentioned earlier. And because we take security very seriously at CircleCI, we've released a tool to automate secret rotation. So this makes your secrets only active for a certain amount of time, which adds an additional layer of security by reducing possible risks if keys are compromised. This is a super useful tool. I remember having to go through my projects and manually or using API, updating my environment variables. It took a really long time. Great to use secret rotation. If this is something that you have struggled with too, I recommend that you go ahead, click on link here, give that a try. I was pretty impressed. So other use cases. We provide a step-by-step instructions on how to perform various configuration tasks using CircleCI's resources, including orbs. So you can leverage CircleCI to deploy to Kubernetes clusters, and we've made this easy to deploy to ECS, GKE, and EKS. This is just an overview, so you can go ahead and click on these links to have a look at these resources. Lots of useful information there. We also have resources to help you deploy your iOS app, making it easy to deploy to the App Store, to Firebase, to Visual Studio App Center. You can also find details on Fastlane and code signing. So we also have a number of different tutorials and example projects that use a number of different languages, frameworks, and technology stacks that can be found here as well. And over here, we have some links to some tutorials and example projects. One that I would like to point out is our Jenkins Converter. So if you were previously using Jenkins, you can go ahead and use our Jenkins Converter and convert your config to work with CircleCI. So that would be under the migrating from other tools link I don't know, it's something I'm very excited about. It's not going to work 100% of the time, but typically it's pretty good in converting your Jenkins YAML file into a CircleCI, one that is supported by CircleCI. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up the floor for some QA. So if you have any questions,